Hi, welcome to another session of We're Not Actually Strangers. I'm Angela.
I'm Pratna.
And I'm Emilia.
I'm Ray.
I'm Yu Lin.
Lim Su Min.
And today's topic of our podcast will be talking about selectivism. So, Pritana, can you start us off? What's selectivism?
Sure. Selectivism is a term that was coined in 1995. It's basically a portmanteau of slacker plus activism. And it's defined as the willingness to perform a relatively costless token display of support for a social or political cause with an accompanying lack of willingness to devote significant effort to enact meaningful change. So as I'm saying this, if I look through the internet, UN has defined selectivism as people who support a cause by performing simple measures but are not truly engaged or devoted to making a change. In very simple terms, it's low cost, low risk online activism. I think selectivism is as famous as it is in today's time because of the increased social media presence among charitable organizations, political parties, and social workers. Once upon a time, political campaigns were held physically, unlike now, where every member of parliament, every president elect, everybody has a social media platform where they can campaign online, and for charitable organizations, for any legal issues, anything that needs to be talked about, people use social media for it, and that's why selectivism is so famous. Another sort of synonymous term to selectivism is what we call token support, which is basically what all of us engage in very frequently, basically sharing social media posts, signing online petitions, retweeting tweets. So yeah, and basically our intention is to create awareness, but what we need to kind of zoom into is that beyond just creating awareness, it's important for us to take a step forward and contribute more significantly, maybe through money, through time, through anything, but just beyond just sitting at home. So selectivism, there are main two things. The first type is clicktivism, and the second one will be hacktivism. Clicktivism is basically what I just talked about. It's us sitting at home, liking a post, retweeting a tweet, signing online petitions, or sharing a post on our Facebook or Instagram profiles. So Sweden, the UNICEF Sweden kind of started a campaign recently which says likes don't save lives. As we can see in this picture, someone is suffering, and the likes that we kind of put out on our social media isn't really helping. There's this whole scam about one like and then they will donate $1. People kind of fall for these scams, and then we think we can just like a post and we'll create a change. But no, it doesn't work that way, and that's what the UNICEF campaign is also trying to say. It's just really no commitment, there's no meaningful support, and there's also no risk. So people are, even if it's a social cause, people are sometimes scared. Even the ones who want to do something about it, they are scared. So this is like the easiest way. I'll like it, I'll share it, and then I'm done with it. So this is clicktivism. And then there's hacktivism, which is more of the use of technology, particularly computers, to promote a social cause or to promote a political party. Um, there's this, very famous, there's this connotation that, hacktivism has to do with cybercrime because of the word hacking. But that's not how it actually works, because hacktivism, for the most part, is about social media hijacking. And it is not illegal, and it doesn't require a lot of skills, computer skills, hacking skills. It's something that any one of us can do. We just need some basic knowledge about how the thing works, and you or me, any one of us can do. It's the expert level kind of hacking that actually is one illegal, and it's also like it's just very a very strenuous process. It kinds of, although it's anonymous, people tend to kind of get caught, and there's just a lot of things going on. And apart from token support, what we should do, as I feel, and I believe all of you will feel so, is that beyond token support. Meaningful support is what's important. As I said just now, we have to donate through money, through our time, through our resources. Meaningful support is what these campaigns and these causes actually require beyond token support. Selectivism has a lot of pros and cons, I suppose, and yeah, we should start discussing them now.
Yeah, so I think trying to think of like the positive side to this, because I know like selectivism has a very bad negative connotation to this, the term. I think viral movements. Okay, so viral movements are very synonymous with selectivism, and especially since like, I think what Pradana mentioned, it's low cost, low risk and non-committal. This makes the engagement with the public, the audiences, even more accessible and convenient. So for example, like during times of crisis, communities across the globe can collectively show solidarity and resilience, like offering help or like getting involved. And I think, can you think of any examples? I think there's like so many times of crisis here.
I think one of the examples I have of the advantages of selectivism is the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge. And through the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge, the community has been able to raise about $42 million. But sadly, one of the researchers actually critiqued that the viral nature of the campaign also hurts the ALS, and it is a substitution for potential donations with a social post. So in other words, the researcher is saying that people think they have donated, but only that's only because they think so, and what they actually do is they only posted. So I think for whatever he said, I have two underlying problems with what he said. So firstly, I think he's assuming that he's assuming that the social media is a substitution for a donation. But I think that's not true at all, because as mentioned earlier, most people are unaware of the ALS disease until the challenge itself. So therefore, assuming that people would have donated if they when there were no videos at all is illogical. Secondly, the performing people doing the ice bucket challenge, they actually help the ALS Foundation, and they actually play a part in spreading awareness of the disease. And the primary objective of the campaign itself in the first place is to actually raise awareness, which they have achieved. So take, for example, other social campaigns online. I don't think monetary donation is always necessary to bring about a positive impact. For example, the pink and red marriage equality box that went viral on the participants' Facebook profiles. I think evidently monetary value is not necessary for you to play a part and for you to actually contribute to something. So the Ice Bucket Challenge exemplifies how over 1 million selectivists can turn into collective activism, regardless of whether the individual themselves know whether they are engaging in the action.
Yeah, I think I agree completely with what you mentioned. I mean, like before I even I never heard of ALS before. Like, do you even know what ALS stands for? So, like, she means like I think from what I remember, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. Okay, I butchered it completely, but the point is, I didn't hear about it until the Ice Bucket Challenge. So, yeah, that's why I guess it really did bring about like awareness for this. I think another part of why selectivism can be good is because it sparks conversation. So I think selectivism is useful in bringing awareness to issues to the community and can spark, like meaningful conversations, like it gets people talking, and it's an easy and shareable way for people like to, like have a discussion about what they're passionate about, as well as to get educated on new issues. So, like social media platforms like Facebook, they can be like a site of activation in which an interest for an issue can be ignited. An example is like, okay, so Facebook. So they have like a temporary profile picture, right? Do you guys like remember those like colored filters for maybe say showing support for LGBT? Yeah. So actually this is it like kind of began in 2015, like after the Paris attacks, if I'm not wrong, and like subsequently used for like other causes. So I think there were like studies. So from Chapman and Koff in 2016, they found that the primary motivation for people like Facebook users to change their profile picture was because they wanted to raise awareness, and this action is actually aligned with like their individual identity, as well as believe that the action is easy and can have an impact. So it was concluded that eventually, like online and offline engagement can overlap greatly, and individuals who participate in, like, like whatever you see offline, protesters, boycotts, they are likely to change their profile picture on Facebook just to show, that kind of support online. And there were like meta-analysis of global slacktivism. So this showed, like, I think they had 36 different studies, and on average the results showed that individuals who engage in like politics and social issues online are also correlated with engaging the same issues offline as well. And it was kind of concluded that how while it's important to know the intention behind like the online act, the lack of clear intention is not exactly considered meaningless if individuals are willing to engage with each other. So I think a study by Jones in 2015, she brought up a case study of Our Better World, which is a digital initiative of the Singapore International Foundation. So they used like a social video of called Kitchen of Cheer. So this was distributed in Singapore and in the US, and it resulted in like an increase of donations, which otherwise wouldn't have happened because previously the founder only shared it with her social circle. And the increase of donations would kind of like prove that, showing, like having like social videos that motivate people to share the video can still prompt actions to help the cause. So at the end of the day, I think creating communities that, are willing to show public support for a cause, online or offline, is still never a bad thing. And while slacktivism may not be enough, it's still a beginning step, like to at least get awareness about something. And compared to, for example, clickbait posts, it's still considered like a lesser of two evils.
Yeah, I mean, I agree definitely with whatever Angela said, but I also think there's also two sides to every story, right? So there's some cons that comes with slacktivism. So first of all, like slacktivism, so if they like retweeting something or posting something on Instagram or liking a post or whatnot, is very different from like sacrificing your own money or time or like being intentional about seeing a change in a particular cause, right? So even though people they are well intended when they jump on like the latest hashtag or the latest bandwagon. The fact is that it actually lacks performability. So consumers or users, right, they engage in a behavior like slacktivism by committing only to small little acts of support that don't engage in any meaningful forms of helpful behavior. So it's very different, like when you compare going out to sign a petition or like meeting someone on the streets and engaging in a conversation and talking about a particular issue. It's very different from you just using your phone and scrolling online and like liking something or changing your display picture. It's a whole different ball game, and you can't exactly compare it like together because they are of different levels. So it's a different level of commitment, and there's, in a sense, not much change is actually being done, right? So according to a guy called Evgeny Morozov, he actually called slacktivism something like cyber utopianism. So it's basically a tendency to think or to ignore something because of laziness or because of plain ignorance. So he associates like clicking on the web or like just like scrolling on your phone or whatnot is basically, it can be equivalent to like taking no action at all because it's just a one-time thing. It's like a simple gesture that's guided more by our emotions rather than reflection. So you're not exactly committed to the issue, but it's because everyone is doing it, so you're gonna jump on it because it's the latest trend. So you're gonna do it because everyone is like posting black squares. Then okay, if I don't post, then I'm not supporting the issue like everyone else, right? So people do it because they're just guided by their emotions. And in addition to that, there's actually a lot of things that goes on social media. So there's like all these issues going on. There's the good things. There's funny videos. There's so many different kinds of content that can constantly distract us or take our attention. So when we share like important causes on social media, we actually don't engage as much supporters as we think that we are, because the audience, they can't exactly focus on a particular issue, or they can't give their undivided attention or support to just one particular issue. So instead of committing to just one cause, their support is scattered everywhere, and it's often for a short period of time. So it's not exactly very effective. It's like if you just like a bit here, a bit here, a bit here, a bit there, it's like you're not really getting much out of it, right? So yeah, because the attention is spread out across all issues and across all different platforms. So One example that like what was mentioned before would be the ALS bucket challenge, the ice bucket challenge, right? So it was a hike. Everyone was doing it, as you all saw just now. There were celebrities that was doing it. You can find YouTube videos like 3 million views of just 35 celebrities throwing water on themselves. It was a trend, right? But the truth is, like, how many people actually donated money towards the cause, right? Like, we didn't really see change take place. It was just a trend. It was a hashtag campaign that came and went, and it was a phenomenon that was very short-lived.
Yeah, so I guess one of the cons of Slacktivism is that it serves as a form of distraction. So using the example of Blackout Tuesday, many online users, they started to post black squares on their Instagram accounts to show that they're in support or they're actually contributing to the movement. And one opinion article that I read talks about how Slacktivism actually discredits the Black Lives Movement itself by making it the latest trend and people just jumping into the bandwagon just because like everyone else is doing so. Yeah, so around June this year, people all across different parts of the world started to post black squares, and they quickly realized that the hashtag was being overwhelmed with tag black squares, and as a result, important information about the protests and updates from the news concerning the movement itself were being lost. So they have like kind of a divided attention. And essentially, Slacktivism is a type of activism in which people support a cause with simple actions or just lazy actions involving social media. And those people, they don't necessarily really stand for the cause. And maybe that's not really in their belief system also. I know like some people, they don't even bother finding out about the history or like how the cause even come about and the significance of the protest. They just do it because all their friends are doing so they don't want to be left out. Yeah, so therefore our Slacktivism engages in some sort of efforts like Blackout Tuesday started with good intentions. It often ends up attracting more performative activism instead of the actual activism itself.
I think, right, do you remember during Circuit Breaker, there's this weird movement, okay, it's weird to me lah, it's the clap for frontliners worker movement kind of thing. So like it's actually an initiative initiated by a British expat after he saw the clap for NHS movement, which many Britons took part in. And just to recap, here's a summary of the movement. Okay, personally, I think this is very dumb. I think there are more practical ways that we can engage in to like really thank the frontliners, like maybe just watch our hygiene and then don't fall sick so often so they are not so overwhelmed, or like increase their salary. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I am so with you on this. So like I have an example. So actually I know a friend who works as a frontline, like one of the frontline workers. She's a nurse, and she told me that she had a really early shift in the morning. So when this happened, when they had the whole like clap for frontliners thing, and they were singing our favorite National Day song, Home. It just affected her sleep schedule because she was really trying her best to sleep, but people were just clapping and like shouting and screaming, singing Home. It was just not the effect that I think. I mean, as if I was a frontline worker, I probably wouldn't want that as well. I would rather have like a pay rise, or like at least get to tell people like to just stay at home and wear a mask. Yeah.
And wash their hands. Yeah. So like in Britain, right, there's actually this law that says that if a petition gets 100,000 signatures, the government will consider it for debate in Parliament. However, according to a political magazine, in the UK political magazine, right, they rarely make any changes to the law. So to me, it's like social movements might bring about awareness, but it rarely brings about any change at all. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very true. And I think another con to this whole issue is also selectivism cannot take place without the internet, without social media. And not everyone has access to the internet. Like there are some that's not as privileged, like they don't have the technologies that we do. Or some of them they just don't know how to navigate around social media. Like my parents are always asking me how to like this photo, how to whatever. Like they don't really know. So with these people, if they lack access, that means we also don't have their support, and then the people they are targeting is a very limited group, it's a very unique group, and you're not targeting like the whole world in a sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So with that said, right, like just now you talked about the clap for frontliners, and then like just now Su Min talked about on how like the Black Lives Matter movement was discredited because the actual movement became like a viral trend. So since we're on that, I want to know, what are your thoughts on the impacts that slacktivism actually has on activism? Like, do you think it impedes on the process? Do you think it enhances, or like does nothing?
I think it's quite hard to say, especially if we consider how heavily reliant we are on technology today. But just like Angela mentioned previously, right, viral movements these days are very much synonymous with slacktivism because of its ability to engage with wider audience. So what are your thoughts on it?
I mean, I agree. Like, I personally think that there exists like a very, very, very thin line between whether or not selectivism actually hurts activism. Because on one hand, I definitely agree that it has done a lot in terms of like voicing out, engaging in like wider audiences, like all the examples you've given earlier. But I can also see why critics of selectivism maintain their school of thought, because like, okay, so to elaborate more on like how it hurts activism, do you all know what concepts are typically used to explain the consequences?
Yeah, I think one of them is moral balancing. So moral balancing is a concept of looking back to your past moral deeds to determine what to do when faced with a moral decision. So there are two types of moral balancing according to Christopherson. I should have said that. Moral licensing being the first one, whereby individuals who do good deeds in the past feel like there's moral leeway to actually skip or avoid social actions like in the present. And the second one is moral cleansing, whereby individuals do more good deeds because in the past they had done bad deeds. So in a sense, they want to like renew themselves. Yeah, so researchers have applied the same logic to the phenomenon of selectivism. That is, when individuals partake in selectivism, for example, like what Pradana mentioned, token support for social actions, they feel less of a need to contribute or follow up with the actions, and that will be classified under moral licensing. So, with going back to the Black Lives Matter example, during the movement, participating in the act of hashtag Blackout Tuesday is likely to reduce the guilt of not pursuing further actions like donating to charitable organizations.
Yeah. So like further studies, right? I've read this study and it also proposes that there's this make-believe intimacy that is created by individuals on the internet. And this intimacy kind of like intensifies the emotions and their sense of solidarity, which like this makes token support seem much more significant than it really is. So in a way, you can say that technology or social media has the tendency to guide us to think of ourselves as more active political participants than we really are. And I think that really harms the process of activism. And yeah, so talking about the concepts that critics use, the second one is social observability. And social observability basically looks at the nature of token support that individuals engage in. So research has proposed that individuals who perform like a private act of token support have a higher tendency to follow up with their social actions as compared to those who like show public token support. This is because like public natures of support have this thing called the impression management motives. That's what they are like usually guided by. And this leads them to a lower likelihood to agree to provide more meaningful support for like like subsequent causes. Because this impression management motive is basically like individuals do something just because they want others to have that impression of them. So it's not really from their heart, it's just for the sake of influencing other people's impressions. And yeah, whereas you compare to like private token support, it garners greater motivation because there is this motivation to behave consistently because there's this value alignment between the self and the cause. So with that, I have mentioned like moral balancing and social observability so far, but to sum it up, right, there is still this bigger question of how and why it is actually harmful towards activism. Because I mean, it is completely understandable. It is one thing to not follow up with a social cause, and it is another to actually impede on activism itself. But the reason is actually very simple as to why critics still believe that selectivism is harmful, and that is that selectivism remains very much just a voice, and a voice without action is dead.
Actually, I have an example. I learned it in Professor Covert's social media class. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of it. It's the CONI 2012 movement. So just a summary of what the movement is actually about. It's driven by...
For 26 years, Coney has been kidnapping children into his rebel group, the LRA, turning the girls into sex slaves and the boys into child soldiers. He makes them mutilate people's faces, and he forces them to kill their own parents. And this is not just a few children. It's been over 30,000 of them. And Jacob was one of those children.
Okay, so this social movement is actually driven to capture Coney in 2012. And as you can see, there's like 102 million views here and like more than 1.3 million likes. And I would say this campaign is not really successful because of the way it's measured. So people deem this campaign to be successful because there's a lot of views and there's a lot of likes. People are aware of this movement, but then I do not think it's successful because it's been 8 years and Coney is still out there and he's not captured. So I don't see how it's successful. And I really think that this is an example of how selectivism is hurting activism, because people were more compelled to take action by sharing the video, liking the video, than donating time and money to the cause. Yeah.
Actually, right, while listening to all of you all discussing about the pros and cons, I got reminded of this recent issue that happened in India in around June, July this year. So there was this father-son duo, Jairaj and Phoenix, and they were subjected to police brutality for very petty, insignificant reasons. And this kind of remained a very like the news wasn't spread enough because due to the lockdown and everything, you know, there wasn't enough media coverage. It happened in the state called Tamil Nadu. So only the Tamil speaking people knew about it. Although they tried to share the news on social media, it didn't really work. But then, so it was like all token support throughout. But then this radio jockey, she decided to speak about it in detail. She described the whole incident and how the the police were not reasonable with what they did in English. And then the video became so viral, so popular. It gained like so many millions of views, and it kind of, you know, pressurized the supreme government of India to actually take action against the two or three policemen. Of course, the son and father duo, they passed away, but it was really necessary. And from, you know, our discussion, I kind of realized that first it was token support, but it wasn't significant. And then this one person engaged in meaningful support. She spent her time, her resources to kind of, you know, create the awareness. And then again, people engaged in token support by sharing that video. And then the you know, it kind of became a success. Like people got to know about it and justice was served. So it's a very there's a balance. There are pros and cons, and I really can't kind of lean on one side as far as selectivism is concerned.
Yeah, so in conclusion, right, selectivism is a phenomenon where we attempt to promote change through passive participation online. And those actions include reposting, sharing an image or post, liking, commenting, signing a petition. And basically all those actions are um, promoting change in a sense, but with little effort.
I think as a group, we believe that it is better if we can take a more active support towards causes or issues that we are passionate about. But with that said, we acknowledge that the pros selectivism bring about, which is like raising awareness on social issues and But in order for social movements to work, right, we recommend that people commit actual hours or donating to the cause whenever possible, instead of just posting black squares or singing or signing petitions. People should spend more time educating themselves about social causes. So we move on to our discussion question. Yeah. So the first question is, have you participated in Sing Together SG, Clap for Frontliners, or the Blackout Tuesday movements? Do your thoughts change about these movements after our discussion building session today? Why and why not? And the second question is, do you think Slacktivism diminishes the significance of an issue? Yep.
And all right, with that, we've come to the end of our podcast. Thanks for tuning in. We are actually not strangers, and that's it. Bye.
Bye.